Hi, my name's Amanda, and this is my story.
My name is Sarah, and this is my story.
My name is Michael Weiss, and this is my story.
My name is Billy, and this is my story.
Did you know that 1 out of every 5 people has a mental health disorder?
More of us die from suicide than from homicide, war, or even car crashes.
We could be your classmate.
We could be your mother.
We could be your political candidate.
We could be an empath.
We're all around you every day.
Where does Nevada stand when it comes to mental health?
We have the 4th highest suicide rate in the nation.
Suicide is the 2nd leading cause of death for those aged 15 to 24.
And it is double the national average for those over 65.
We can do better.
We can do better.
We can do better.
It was only recently. We talked about it. I'd spoken to my family about it in my late 20s, I think. It came up in conversation and was recognized and understood. But I wasn't officially diagnosed until about 2 years ago.
I was diagnosed with depression when I was 10, after my dad saw me crying, and he asked me why I was crying, and I said, I don't know why, but I was crying. And so he took me to a psychiatrist, and they put me on an antidepressant, and then began a series of me trying various medications over different periods of time, and they would work for a little while and then stop working. And also during this time I had a bunch of diagnoses. I was diagnosed with anxiety, some personality issues, and bipolar disorder, which seemed to have stuck in terms of validity for some time. But the diagnosis was not correct. It did not explain everything.
I gave birth to my daughter a little over 2 years ago. I had always wanted to be a mom and wanted to have kids, and I was very, very excited to be pregnant and to give birth. So I'm also a doula, so I work with pregnant women, and I'm very knowledgeable of the possible disorders that come after having a baby. The most popular of which is, postpartum depression. That's the one people know about most. So I wasn't really prepared to be hit the way that I was after giving birth.
Probably around high school, I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. And later on, they thought it might be bipolar, and I did some work with some therapists and tried some medications, and they decided it definitely wasn't bipolar. But it took me until I was in my postgraduate education to actually be what I feel is accurately diagnosed.
A lot of guilt, because I feel like I'm letting people down. But what leads up to that is just utter sadness and lack of any kind of motivation. Getting out of bed and eating I've done a good job, is like a huge accomplishment on the worst days. But then guilt, and then it's compounded.
So a lot of my identity was effectively based on my achievements, my education, so I was going for my PhD, and I failed a qualifying exam. And this was my first experience with failure, and the psychiatrist who confirmed my diagnosis of Asperger's later explained to me that this incident effectively shattered my identity, because up until that point, it was excel, 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 excel. And this was a disaster, because potentially, my career I was studying sociology. I was teaching at the college level. I was a sociology instructor. And So my whole career was in jeopardy because of this failure, and I fell apart.
The depression, I just had real feelings of emptiness, a deep sadness. I felt very guilty all the time for things that I really had no responsibility for. I was a self-harmer, and that's kind of what propelled me into therapy. My mom found out and decided that that was the point where medical intervention was necessary. I also had panic attacks, and then later, when I was actually diagnosed with ADD, I found out that a lot of other things that I didn't even know were symptoms, I thought they were just the way I was. I found out that those were actually ADD symptoms.
Being a mom is hard in a lot of different ways. And you know, the way that my anxiety manifested itself was like thinking about the worst possible scenario all the time. You know, like if I forgot to close the door all the way and she got outside, and not only did she just get outside, but you know, she's dead.
Chronic depression has been linked to most mental illnesses.
It's more than just a bad day.
But a persistent feeling of sadness and loss of interest.
It's a mood disorder that affects how one feels, thinks, and behaves.
And if left untreated,
It can lead to physical and emotional health issues.
Including suicide.
Those with depression are at a 25 times greater risk of suicide than the entire population.
Some signs that you or someone you know may be battling chronic depression are
Changes in sleep, appetite, or activity level.
lack of concentration, energy, or interest,
hopelessness or guilty thoughts,
Physical aches and pains.
even suicidal thoughts.
Be especially aware of the following:
comments about killing oneself,
Increased alcohol or drug use.
aggressive behavior,
social isolation,
Dramatic mood swings,
Talking, writing, or thinking about death.
impulsive or reckless behavior,
and finally, a history of suicidal thoughts or actions.
Some of the worst episodes would be not wanting to live anymore, definitely. And that happens a couple times a year. I've come really close and thought very, very heavily about it 4 times. I'm one of the very, very lucky, fortunate ones. I've got a huge network of friends and family, big support system, and any number of people that I can reach out to. So I've had that. One time it was, I had been drinking a lot and had a friend call a number, I'm not sure what the number was, it was like 311 or 711 or something, and it leads to what's called here in Nevada, a legal 2000, which is a mandatory 3-day hold for people who are threatening their own lives. And they basically take you in and chain you to a bed and feed you numbing drugs for 3 days to get you past it. And it wasn't a great experience. I was more angry when I got out. but that was one of the things that stopped me. They treat you harsh and cold, and you have no outside contact and no means of entertainment or anything to get out of your own head, which is the worst place to be in those times. Having the people that, some of the closest people to me, not understand hurts pretty severely. And I know they care, but in day-to-day life and interactions, they don't understand why I behave certain ways. Sometimes I don't even understand, but I feel lesser than sometimes in the hierarchy of the family or circles or whatever, and that's rough. Yeah. Here's how to help.
Be direct.
Keep them safe by reducing access to lethal items or places.
Tell them that you care and you're there.
Confide in a trusted mentor, family member, or friend.
And finally, help them get help through the resources in their community. Save the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline's number in your phone. 1-800-273-TALK, or simply text 741-741 for the crisis hotline.
We can do better. Fight the stigma.
Fight the stigma.
We can do better. Fight the stigma.
We can do better. Fight the stigma.
Thanks for sharing.